right, John, if you want to move to that next screen.
And Kristen, how many have we have signed up for this evening?
3, 2 discussing maps.
Okay.
So, Judge Williams, would you like to start with introducing everyone, or do you want me to give the lay of the land first this evening?
No, I could go straight ahead, introduce the commission and welcome everyone. Yes.
Okay. Well, whenever you are ready, I think we are good to go.
Okay. We're here to start right now. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third public session listening tour of round 2. We have an additional session on Monday for the public to react and give us comments. Let me first of all say I am Alex Williams. I'm a retired federal judge, and I'm from Prince George's County, and we have a number of other commissions with us today. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. I'll start off with Dr. Kate Hetherington.
Thank you, Judge Williams. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Kate Hetherington. I'm president of Howard Community College, and I reside in Howard County, and I'm one of the co-chairs.
Hi, my name is Walter Olson. I'm another co-chair. I reside in Frederick County, and my day job is with a think tank in Washington, D.C.
All right. Mary, can you go next?
Hi, I'm Mary Clausen. I'm a retired federal employee and I live in Anne Arundel County.
All right. Thank you, Mary. Jonathan?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Fussfield. I live in Montgomery County. I'm communications manager for a government contractor.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. William?
Good evening, everyone. I'm William Thomas. I'm a systems engineer for the Department of Defense. I reside in Baltimore City.
All right. And Kim Cummings?
Hi, Kim Cummings from Maryland's Eastern Shore, resident of Dorchester County, work for the Circuit Court in Dorchester County, specializing in land records and licensing.
All right. Thank you, Kim. And we have Cheryl Brooks.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Brooks. I'm a resident of Baltimore County and a proud elementary school principal.
All right. Kristen, did I miss anyone?
I think you're good.
All right. And we have one commissioner that wasn't able to be with us today. Is that correct?
Correct. Jay Amin.
All right. Great. Okay. Well, Kristen, can you now go over the policies and the process for our meeting today?
Sure will. Good evening and welcome to the third public meeting of round 2 of the Maryland Citizens Redistricting Commission. This meeting is being recorded. As we begin, there are a few matters to share regarding the rules and policies about this evening's meeting and the platform that we use on Zoom. This meeting does offer Spanish interpretation. To listen in Spanish, you will simply use the control panel at the bottom or at the top of your screen and select interpretation. That will allow you to listen live in Spanish. I do ask that speakers tonight remember this and speak slowly and clearly so that the translator has time to do his job. There will be a 3-minute allotment for speakers, so everyone who wants to speak can. When there is 20 seconds left of your speaking time, a screen share will appear, letting you know that there's a countdown timer starting so that you can wrap up your remarks. Inappropriate speaking, attire, behavior, or background will result in removal from the meeting without the option to rejoin. Anyone registering to speak after 6 p.m. last night should also ask to join as a speaker in the chat section, as your name may not have made it to the list that we will call from for pre-registered speakers. If you did want to speak about a map, you should know that you will not be able to screen share if you are speaking, if you register to speak in the chat section, because any maps need to be submitted within 24 hours prior to the meeting for us to be able to screen share them for you. If you did not register to speak, again, please register to do so in the chat box and indicate that you'd like to speak. Provide your name as it appears in your registration box, as well as the county in which you reside. The raise hand option should not be used to ask to speak. Speakers should make sure that their name is listed properly in their registration box so that we know who to move from the attendee list over to the panelist list. Please do note that that participants list or attendees list is not public because many people join by telephone, and in order to protect the privacy of their mobile numbers or home numbers, we do not publish that list. The pre-registered speakers will go first, followed by those who request to speak tonight during the chat line. Remember, when you are made a panelist, you will be moved from an attendee over to a panelist. You'll see a message saying that the host would like you to promote you to a panelist, and you'll need to accept that by clicking join as panelist. We'll wait about 5 or 10 seconds for you to join. And if you're unable to, we'll move on to the next speaker and come back to you. Please be sure to unmute and to share your video if you would like to be on screen. Once speakers are finished, we have to move you back to the attendee section, and you might see a spinning wheel or a message that you're being moved back. Please do not worry, you're not being kicked out of the meeting. You're just simply being moved back to a different section. We know this is a lot of information, but just want to assist you in understanding how this meeting will operate so it can go as smoothly as possible. With that, I'd like to hand things back over to Judge Williams.
You're muted, Judge.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, William. I want to welcome all of our persons who linked in this evening to this session, and hopefully this will be another interesting meeting for us to learn a lot. I understand, Christian, we have a couple people who want to talk and testify with reference to a couple maps. Can you start that off now?
We do. 2 of them have not yet joined. The Honorable Robert Bauman from Talbot County did indicate that he wanted to speak this evening about the September 9th maps that were presented. I do not see him on the list. So if Mr. Bauman, you have joined and perhaps you are not listed with that name in the attendee list, please raise your hand. Use the raise hand feature so that we can identify you. The next speaker, Zalika Bazemore, has also not yet joined. She did not indicate that she wanted to speak about a specific map, but that she wanted to speak about Baltimore City. John Patterson would like to speak about his submission, map 1025. Mr. Patterson, I'm going to make you a panelist now. Please be sure to accept that and then unmute and share your start your video if you would like to speak, and I will share my screen. Do you guys have 1025 up there already?
Yes, we see it.
Yes. Okay, thank you, John.
All right. Mr. Patterson with us?
Okay.
Mr.
All right.
Patterson, yes, we hear you and welcome.
Good. All right. Thank you. I'm John Patterson. I'm getting to be known as the Franklin Divisor guy. Primary feature of the Franklin Divisor is the use of whole counties as the basis for districts. Why is that a good idea? Much of the feedback from citizen listening sessions about splitting populations and communities of interest and people not knowing who their reps were. Whole counties are the basis for district greatly reduces the risk of splitting communities of interest. Representatives will work in service to particular counties. It's a simple, transparent process. Responsibility is with elected officials closest to the people. County leaders will face hard decisions. Reuben Collins of Charles County must either join Southern Maryland counties or PG County in the congressional plan. Neither is ideal, but it will be his choice. And the 2-year redo period minimizes risk. It's automatic in terms of the numbers for redistricting. There is minimal chance of gerrymandering. So what's the main impediment to the use of whole counties? The main problem is the stated requirement to have equal population in each district across the state. The origin of our problems goes back to Jefferson. It was exacerbated when the Supreme Court ruled in 1964 and said that we must have equal populations in federal representative districts. It's never put into law at the federal level, but many states rushed out and put it in their state constitutions. Maryland's constitution has a sentence that says equal population is required. What is said by some experts is this nullifies the next phrase, due regard should be taken for existing political boundaries, which is what we're trying to do. Why do I think we have a chance of changing the Supreme Court ruling on this issue? The ruling always has an asterisk that says states need to justify not having equal population. People have read that to mean that if you're off by 5%, you may get a waiver from the court. I read it that they say they produced a quick fix and they're open to a new idea. They have been since the original ruling. Also, we're talking about going back to the original Constitution with the Franklin Divisor. I think our originalist justices will all be in favor of that. Westbury versus Sanders, case behind the ruling would not have been an issue under the Franklin Divisor method. The Supreme Court may welcome the Franklin Divisor approach to a questionable ruling from the bench. I'll be here next Monday to talk about applying the Franklin Divisor program to state legislatures, Maryland first. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Patterson. Are there any questions of Mr. Patterson from the commissioners? All right, Mr. Patterson, I just have just one inquiry. Where on your map, 1025, is the excess in Montgomery County go and the excess in Prince George's? I can't follow that.
We don't have any excess. The whole idea is that the maps are made up out of whole counties. And there's no excess. That's the whole point of the methodology. Now, they're saying that that's goes against the equal district size rule, but I'm saying that district size rule doesn't make any sense.
Okay. All right, that explains it. I follow you. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. If no further questions, I want to thank Mr. Patterson for his comments. All right. Who's the next one, Kristen?
So our next speaker is, I do, real quick, before that happens, I do want to point out that for some reason our closed captioning is not working tonight. I'm going to continue trying to troubleshoot that. We are recording, but for some reason the closed captioning is not coming up. So again, I will continue to work on that. Our next speaker is Delegate Neil Parrott. I am making you a panelist of Washington County.
All right, Delegate Parrott, welcome. Always good to see you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure why the video is not on, but I could probably just talk without the video. Oh, wait, actually, I see the click down here. There we go. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you for the work that you all have done. I just want to comment on the initial map, the draft congressional map drawn by the Maryland Citizens Redistricting Committee on Thursday, September 9th, that hearing. And I just want to say that I was very impressed when I looked at that map, because the rules that were given were from the Maryland Constitution, which it says each legislative district shall consist of adjoining territory, be compact in form, and a substantially equal population. Due regard shall be given to natural boundaries and boundaries of political subdivisions. As I looked at this map, I really couldn't see a better way to follow those rules than what this commission has put together. Eastern Shore, it's all together. You've got rural communities, and you're respecting the county lines as much as you possibly can while trying to keep that equal population. The same thing with Western Maryland, and then also Southern Maryland. Of course, Prince George's County overflows, so you gave it its own district, plus a little bit that it needed. Montgomery County had over 1 million people, so you gave it what it needed, plus a few extra to make up that difference in population. I just want to say I'm very impressed, and I actually think that these rules that you're following right now could become the state rules, because in Pennsylvania, their state constitution is almost identical to Maryland, and their rules say that the Commonwealth shall be divided into 50 senatorial and 203 representative districts, with each shall be composed of compact and contiguous territory as nearly equal in population as practical. Obviously, this referred to just the state maps, and our Constitution has it in the state map section, but their Pennsylvania Supreme Court said, no, it needed to apply to all maps, those rules in the state, and the US Supreme Court upheld that decision. So I think that's going to be what happens in Maryland as well. And in that case, this map certainly passes the muster. And I just want to compliment you all for a great job done on this first draft of the map.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Parrott. Any questions to the delegate? All right. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Feel free to stay. I know you're busy right now, but if you'd like to stay, just continue to join with us. Thank you. Our next speaker, Kristen.
The other two speakers, again, the Honorable Robert Bauman, as well as Lika Bazemore, neither has been able to join yet this evening. They've not shown up in the attendee list. If they join, we certainly can come back to them. But for now, that is it. I will add that Mr. Patterson, who spoke just before the delegate, did send a few attachments and some additional written testimony that will be sent to you guys later this evening, along with a bunch of other materials that I have been trying to get out to you today.
All right, great. Okay, that's we'll wait to see if others show up. If they do, we'll certainly hear them. But right now, we should continue on with our agenda. And so what's the next agenda item, Kristen?
So I believe that I was going to say, John's going to pull it up right here for us. So I believe that you were going to once again review some draft illustrative maps with the professor, and I apologize, I have his name. It is Professor Nate Persilli, incorrect there. But that is what we will be doing this evening. I know that you all still want to have conversations regarding some other matters, so we can move right into that.
All right, Professor, welcome. Good to see you this evening. And I guess we can just take off from where we were on yesterday with a couple of, I guess, base maps dealing with the legislative maps.
All right, I sort of await a little bit of direction as to how, what we can do is we can work off of the map that I presented yesterday, or we could start working from scratch with that in the background. And so it really depends on what you want to do. I know that several of the commissioners wanted, and I circulated my earlier PowerPoints, wanted to have a discussion about the principles in the maps. And so I can do this however you'd like. If we want to just start making headway on parts of the map, we can just do that and decide whether we're going to go off of the existing districts or off of a blank slate. I did
quickly, since I got the email from Commissioner Amin maybe an hour ago, I did do a different scenario for Baltimore that would deal with, which would not have it joining with Anne Arundel County. And so I'm happy to show what that might look like. But also, if we want to just start with, like we did with the congressional map, start in the western part of the state and draw the districts, we can go that way. Or like I said, we can work off of my map and we can go look at what we think is wrong with it and make adjustments if you'd like.
What is your pleasure, commissioners? You want to take a quick look at that revision for Baltimore City and Anne Arundel County and see what that looks like?
Yes. Please.
Great.
Yes,
All
please.
right. Let me put that up there. This is done, like I said, this was done relatively quickly because the request came in only about an hour ago, but I was able to do something along these lines. And let me make sure that I have screen sharing privileges here. Yes, I do. And so here is a different, if you remember the way that we were looking at Baltimore County originally was that this district down here, what is District 24, was actually spilling into Anne Arundel County here. And the way I've now done this, and move these windows out of the way, is to that there's now that there's no spillage from here to Anne Arundel, but instead you've got a District 27 that bridges Baltimore County. And if you remember, this District 17 also obeyed the Baltimore County line. And instead, once you take the population out of here, we move districts up in this direction. And so we now have a district that straddles the Baltimore County line with parts of Anne Arundel and I believe Howard County. Then these districts rotate up. So 17 will go up, 15 will go up. And then the intrusion that I made, knowing a little bit about Northwestern Baltimore, decided, and there are lots of different ways we could do this, decided to take Northwestern Baltimore and this area and put it up into District 16. And then you'll see there's kind of a Western Harbor District, an Eastern Harbor District, and then these two other districts. And I can zoom in, I can put, if we want to get really specific about what areas we're talking about, right? I tried to obey some of the major highways in doing this, though these are all drawn on precinct lines. But this is the area that we're talking about here. A Northwest Baltimore district coming in, these shifting around. These all remain 22, 23, 21, 24, I believe, are all majority African-American districts for what it's worth. Yes, some substantially so, some less so. As is District 17, which is 60%, and I believe, and District 7. So the outlying district continues to be. Let me take off the complicated. But so District 17, District 21, District 22, 23, and 24, all majority African American. What else could I, and I'm happy to put up the demographic data if anyone is interested. I think there's a real interesting question as you do Baltimore as to whether they go in this direction, sort of in the sort of pizza slice mode. Some of this is, I think, dictated a little bit by the Voting Rights Act, but I think we could smooth out, some of these boundaries. And part of it is also for those of you who live in Baltimore to give direction as to how you think to deal with the sort of harbor area here a little bit, and how, where in the previous map, I had the whole harbor in one district. Here it's kind of split out. So the 23 has this shore here, and there's lots of ways to think about it. So that's the Baltimore map, new Baltimore map. But
Mr. Priscilli, can you overlay that with the current map by any chance? Just
Yeah, well, the current districts that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there, I mean, it's going to be a lot of lines on the page. Let me see if I can make it clearer for you, but you can see the way, let me take out the existing line. So you see that the existing lines also kind of come in like slices, except there's this strangely shaped District 40 that goes from, I mean, you see the way that District 46 goes, it has both sides of the harbor, right, like this. District 45 is coming in, 43, 41 is sort of an upside down, an L shape. 40 is right in the center here. And then you have one that does cross the city boundary in this kind of, with this sort of tentacle. And that's District 44. And so the way that these districts have been drawn right now, there's only one incursion into Baltimore, from Baltimore County into Baltimore City. It occurs up here. And then each one of these districts comes in basically from the border in.
Okay, thank you.
Nate, on District 27, in Jay's suggestion, I remember that he said that there might be a coherent community of interest with substantial Asian populations on both sides of the Howard-Baltimore County line. Could you pull up those statistics for 27 so we could take a look at that?
Yeah, that's going to take me a second. So let me do that. But I'll do it quickly. It'll demonstrate the Asian population percentages there. But there may be some fudging with the prisoner adjusted data and the like, but I will, this is for the non-Hispanic Asian population. And I will, the thing is it's not like there are majority Asian census or VTD's precincts, right? So it's going to be, at the lower end. So let me just demonstrate what it would look like. So, the areas that are orange or red. So the more orange, you probably want to pay attention to like the ones that are at this breaking point. In fact, let me just customize this a little bit. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just going to pay attention to anything that's at least 10% Asian. I'll set the threshold there. I don't know if you want to make it higher. So just so people know how I do this, that I'm setting the thresholds for the colors on the map. And so now you can see the areas that have at least 10% Asian. 10% will be the lightest yellow color, and orange is going to be the darkest area. Okay, so one thing you'll see, this community is relatively kept together, but you can see some other communities there. But you were asking about Howard County, I think, and we could do some more work in this area to get the heavy concentrations in one district. It's still going to be like, if you look at the District 26 as I've drawn it, it is about 20% Asian right now, 19.43%. And so there's some other, you could draw, if you draw it going in this direction, it'll probably end up getting a little bit higher percentage. I mean, I'd be interested in Commissioner Hetherington's sort of view about how to split up Howard County here. We talked yesterday about the Ellicott city in Columbia and how to, whether that's a dividing line. What's interesting here is that if you put Columbia in with the rest of Howard and you put Ellicott and maybe Ilchester in one district, that could be a way of maybe representing the Asian community of interest better. So if you split it in a sense I want to say sort of east-west or northwest to southeast, that might do it. But I'd have to see about the numbers.
Let me just ask, if you pulled that line where Ellicott City is more to the west.
This right here?
Yeah, if you pull that, because it looks like you're pulling in more of the Asian population if you do that.
Yeah, that could be easily done. And then you can compensate for it down here. Now that what will happen though is then we're gonna, we'll split Columbia more, but that's just a decision, but you don't, but maybe the answer is we can really move things around here so that you push ultimately, this is also going to affect the shape of District 27 here, which goes into Baltimore County, right? So that then this district will go farther into Anne Arundel. So if you basically push this up into here, this will go down. If you want to push even farther to get these ancient communities here, that would have cascading effects. But I think it makes sense to just try and see what would happen.
Well, if we can just try. My inclination is to keep Columbia intact, though.
Yes, no, I think what we can
significant
do.
growth in Columbia, and it's more growth is on the horizon, especially in the downtown development.
Well, one thing we can do, for example, if we wanted to get pretty aggressive about that, so that we could take all of Columbia and put it into this District 14. Again, just so you see how I do this kind of thing. This is not, the best way to do it, but so we took all of Columbia, right, and that even includes some of this part that's being split up. I'm a little concerned what we might do to District 32 here, so let me I just want to take that out just because there were some voting rights issues there. All right, so say we did that, and then District 26 would go all the way up here. So we would make sure that all of Ellicott City is in there. And then what you'll see here. So this is right now, if we did it this way, is just half a district. We're also, now notice we're pushing up into Carroll County here so that we've got you don't want to cut off part of it. So we want to keep this district. If it stays like this, it's got to have a distance to go. And basically what right now, if you do it like this, we're going to have to find some other population. And maybe the answer may be, well, because remember, this is Montgomery County, so then that line can't be breached if we're keeping all the districts in Montgomery County. And so we'd have to do some pretty fancy work down here.
I'm inclined to go back to what you had originally. That seems to make more sense to me. Because then you have all of Columbia intact, you have a good chunk of Ellicott City, and the part of Ellicott City that's out a little bit more towards Sykesville, that's contained.
Okay.
So what you had originally, which I hope you saved. I don't know, others can weigh in too.
What Kate says makes sense to me too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. I think one of the strengths of Maryland is diversity. I think we're the 5th diversity index state in the country. And I don't think trying to necessarily pack a district to represent one group is in our best interest.
And Howard County is, over the years, one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Maryland. And it's one of, if not the most diverse in Maryland.
It may very well be that we won't have the trade-offs that I'm suggesting. It'll just take some time to kind of figure out how best to do this. And so I just sort of expressed the stresses. It may very well be, for example, that you could draw a district that the Baltimore County district that will go off into one of these other. You could do it Baltimore County to Howard as opposed to Baltimore County to Anne Arundel.
Yes, that's possible too. Correct. We could do that scenario with that.
Yeah. So for example, this would mean this area would come in. We would still have to, 17 is still going to have to figure out, it has to gain population somewhere in Baltimore County, but you could have, actually the way I've drawn it, this basically is mostly about half Howard County and half Baltimore County, and then just a little bit of Anne Arundel. So however, I mean, this is the kind of thing as we go through and finalize the map, I think, we will get really micro here and especially like when we'll go street by street in Baltimore County and Baltimore City to figure out what the right answers are. But it would be useful just to get a sense of like the large blocks of a population and then, for the large, put districts down on the page and then we can refine them later.
So I'd like to go back to what the judge had suggested earlier, that we maybe want to look at those areas that are probably easier to do so we can have them completed and then be tackling the more challenging ones. And while we're doing this, I think what we're realizing is that the criteria that we eventually are going to have a conversation about, it's coming out and what our choices are. So I don't know if going with the western part of the state first, as we did with the congressional, is the easiest thing to do.
Yes, and do you want to work off the map that I've prepared, or should we start from scratch?
I'm not inclined to start from scratch.
I would agree. I think we should start with the map you have up now.
Okay. All right. And I guess the first question is, will we stay with the 5% deviation, at least at this first stage? We don't have to make the decision for the final map, but will we take advantage of that? Because that's going to affect the decision, for example, on how we deal with Frederick and whether we go over into other counties.
To reiterate my position, it's fine with me to start with that as a starting point because it makes it easier to arrive at a base map. We need to have a conversation afterward about tightening the population tolerances, and then you'll hear more of my opinions than you probably want to hear, but it's fine to start with the looser one as a way of getting to a base map.
So one of the sort of minor pieces of advice I have, if that's going to be the process, is that we just make sure that as we go through the map that we're not systematically underpopulating or overpopulating parts of the state, so that then you can swap population later on. And so as we go through, if you see me adding, a little bit here and there, maybe it's to preserve that flexibility. So the way that I think what I'll do is maybe take the colors off of these districts for now, just so that we can, unless people feel differently, so that we can call up the other kinds of lines. So, the real question for this first district, it seems to me, is where do you draw the line in Washington County, right? And the way I did it here with the VTDs, when I say VTDs, those are voter tabulation districts or precincts. The VTDs is to make sure that Hagerstown and Smithburg were both not intruded upon. Williamsport is kept in District 1. And all this is done by whole precincts. And so the shapes of these areas is just because of the precinct shapes. How would you like to proceed? I mean, so that's, and then once you make that decision, the rest of District 2 is pretty clear. And then you make a decision where you're going to cross over from District 2 into Frederick. Again, assuming we're respecting, otherwise respecting the county lines.
You're only talking about two senatorial districts. How different are these maps and what the present situation is? Pretty much the same?
Well, so I'll toggle back and forth so you can see like the way the current, I mean, there's only, because of the geography in Northwestern Maryland, there's only so much you can actually do here because of the constraints, right? Because you can't like draw a district that would split this. And so here, I'm just going to take the municipalities off, and so you can just see. I'll even take the streets off, just so you can see the shape. So the District 1 line went to here, and now it would go and take in this territory, right? Because it needs to get more people. But this line is basically the same. And that's, again, if you're going to respect the municipalities, this is kind of what you're forced to do, right? Because you have no, either the one other option is you could do a kind of loop that would come down this way and get Smithburg and then push this up with Williamsport, but you want to be a little careful that you don't lose continuity up there. So I do think this is probably, roughly what one would do. You could, like I said, or you could go down this way and get more population that way and then push this all the way up to the border. Those are the choices. And so the blue, it basically moves the blue line over this way. And then as a result, instead of respecting the Washington County line here, it has to go over somewhere.
Sure.
So if we're in agreement, can we say, yes, we're in agreement, and then you hold on to these as our base Senate maps, and then we move on, because we do have 188 maps to do. So we've done the 8 congressional, so we got a lot of work. And again, this will be helpful to the public. They can weigh in, and of course, we'll also be looking at what the public submitted. But anyway, all right. So maybe Judge Williams, you want to just see if everybody?
Yeah. What's the next area that is not too much?
Well, so I think we should go do through Frederick. So 2, I think there's a question: should the incursion happen here and take in Brunswick, or should it go in some other direction? And that's.
I've spoken up for Brunswick because the communication between it and South Washington County is a lot closer than up in the north end, where you've got South Mountain being a bigger obstacle. And if you try to do it in the middle, you're going to cut right into Frederick suburbia. And I don't see any reason. Brunswick is a very distinctive community with its own identity. And that way you wouldn't have to cut into the Frederick direct area.
Okay. All right. So then that leaves at least 2 districts for Frederick. And the real question, it seems to me, so long as we are respecting the boundaries of the city of Frederick, is where do you go? Do you go south? Do you go west? Do you go east? Once you've decided that you're going to put the city in one district, where do you go? I mentioned some of the reasons going. So the other point, just so we're clear, is that generally we do not create donut holes in Senate districts, so you don't have a circle going around another district. That, I will say, is not specified in the law, but it's sort of good redistricting practice that you don't have districts that are fully contained within other districts. And so we got to go toward one of the borders here. And so I just thought that the South, because of part of this had to do with the demographics that I was showing you yesterday. And so that this is what I decided. I know that Walter, you're our expert on Frederick, so maybe there are things
sorry to monopolize this part, but I promise the rest of you will get to monopolize other regions. In general, this is fine. I have one little issue, which is on the right side of the line below Frederick. There's that notch toward the bottom. Yeah, that cuts into Urbana. Urbana has a very distinct identity. I don't think we should take a bite out of Urbana without very good reason. So I mentioned that, but that's just a very tiny point. Otherwise, it seems fine to me.
Where would you get the additional population if you respected that?
Let me see whether you might be able to even do it without. Yeah, so then we'd have to find some other place to pick up.
Take a little place on the west side of the line instead of the east side.
Here, okay. Was this also, I just want to see the demography of this that particular area is just looking at the percentages. Yeah, it's not that significant. All right, so why don't I make that change, and then I will compensate. It's part of the problem here is that all of these are also going to be pretty large census blocks. So something like that, which would do it. But let's see if going this way, that would also be okay if we wanted to do both of those, because do you feel that that's the right way to do it, or to?
It brings it closer to the current district, and I think there's a certain logic there.
Okay. All right. I'm just showing you the area that we're talking about here. So, all right. Why don't again, we're just doing the working map here. It also leads to lower deviations. So that's one possibility there. All right. I had this going sequentially. I think it probably makes sense if we can knock out District 5 and then start going toward Howard, that might be a better way to do it. And then we can jump into Montgomery County. So, with District 5, you can see the way it was drawn before. There's not a whole lot of difference. It really just depends on how you deal with Mount Airy. I mean, actually, there is a significant difference because this is one of those areas where, the decision to keep county lines leads to the split of a city. And so, we can, if you lower the population, or if you want to create another district that crosses the border between Frederick and Carroll, it's natural to do it here to unite the city. And frankly, we might even be able to do that, if you wanted to do it. This is not going to create population problems. If you were to basically take that, you'll see that this means that District 3 would be overpopulated, but we can take back some of the population into, when either over here with this district or with this district. So I don't want to. Right now, this plan is tightly obeying county lines, and so I don't want to presume that that's what you want to do here. And so District 5, though, I think naturally would start in the north and then just go south. What's the right, border here is open to a lot of, interpretation. I'll put on some of the neighborhood markers. Like, for instance, I don't know whether Eldersburg is, let me see, so this basically this is the way the current line goes for the district, but you'll see that, right, they had a district that went over Mount Airy. Does that seem reasonable?
To me, this seems fine for now. We can always revisit it for adjustments, but keeping all but the bottom of Carroll together seems like a great idea to me.
Walter, I had a question. Could you comment, right now, is Mount Airy split between two districts?
No, they do the county split instead of the city split. And so right now, District 4, as it's numbered, includes a little bit of Carroll County around Mount Airy and some of the outskirts and some rural areas near it. So that's the area where because Mount Airy is the only sizable town that sprawls across county lines in the whole state, it's the area where you are most likely to have to choose between a county split and a town split. And as I say, if we decide to tighten the population variances later, this would be a place to revisit, because you could, if you have to make the county split anyway for population reasons, then it would let you do this. But again, I said, I agreed, let's go loose with population variance at first on the understanding that we can, come back and see if we want to tighten it up to 1% or 2%.
One of the reasons that so this is the blue lines are the current districts. And so you can see, as Walter was saying, that the Mount Airy, the district lines collect that. Part of what's interesting about the existing map, though, is that it respects this border with Frederick, right? And so that's because the population 10 years ago was different. And now this district has to go into Frederick County in order to get population. And then the next district doesn't need to, but if you wanted to, if you were trying to either adopt a lower population threshold or just wanted to unite this town, right? I think you could easily justify doing that. To be a useful thing if there are residents of Mount Airy who are listening in, it would be useful to get some kind of comments on you know, what's the right way to do this. So should we go down toward Howard then? Maybe as the next,
Yes.
or do you want to go into Montgomery County? Okay. So here's where we were just discussing this. And so how we should, you know, experiment here is I think
we were saying keep 26 as what you just drew.
And 14 also.
And 14, which goes into Carroll. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, 14 goes, let me take off some of these lines so you can see.
I don't know if it does now. You know, Carroll and
Right.
Howard, they share a state senator.
Right. So again, I can try to massage this to try to keep Columbia to go, but this is basically the way I think it's going to look.
I think the Columbia-Ellicott City connection is very strong and important.
One thing just to, I'm sorry, go on, Judge.
Columbia and what?
Ellicott City, Columbia and Ellicott City.
Are they together now?
Yes, in 26. Not all of Ellicott City, but good part, right? If I'm saying that right, Professor?
Yeah, and well, and we could also see about this is the kind of thing that we, you know, especially in the final stages that we could do. So, for example, if we wanted to add, I'm just seeing here, you know, if Jay were here, we were talking about this, we could add. That pushes it up above 5%, but we could, you know, we could think about what the right way is to do this boundary here to get a little more of Ellicott City. I'm looking at the deviations here, right? So this would make it 3%. We can see whether there's additional swaps right on the edge of Ellicott City that could be.
Yeah, Route 40 in Ellicott City is heavily Asian populated. In fact, the county is designated as Koreatown, and if there is a way we can keep as much of that intact, that would be really good.
I just want to make sure I understand which area you're talking about.
Ellicott City near Route 40.
Near Route 40.
I think this map certainly keeps together the sections of Route 40 that continue west from Catonsville. Whether it does that, the farther western stretches, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Right, yeah,
that's
so
good.
as you can see, we can zoom in, right? I can
Yeah,
get the
that's
tops of
great.
houses. So here's Route 40 here going this way, and then like, is it both sides of Route 40?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think the map is doing well at it already.
Yeah, I do
its
too.
point.
I think it's fine.
Okay. All right, so District 29, so 14 and 26, then so far so good. So District 32 here, I want to delay discussion on it because although we can talk about it now, we did talk about it yesterday about how to deal with Laurel.
Yes.
But this also has some kind of voting rights potential implications. And so that's why it is drawn this way. But the discussion of this district also bears on what you're going to do with Prince George's County generally, as to whether you're going to have other districts that cross over from Prince George's into other counties.
So because of that, do you want to hold off and go with the simpler ones just so we can get some maps underway?
So right now we're getting into where a lot can change, right? Because you've got the pressures of the Baltimore County and Baltimore City districts. You've got these. I would actually suggest maybe if you're comfortable, we could jump either to the Eastern Shore or that we do Montgomery.
I'd say if Montgomery's not that complicated, that's a big county.
Well, Montgomery is complicated, just so we're clear,
okay.
but only because you have to make some decisions about what you're going to deal with this border. And also, as we start thinking about the race and representation issues, there's a lot of different ways. There's some basic things about Montgomery County that we can discuss, whether, for example, we should have these 3 large districts, right? One focused in Germantown, one that has Gaithersburg, another one that has Rockville. And I know that, we've seen some other maps that even some of the commissioners have drawn that have done that. And that's what I've done here. Then how you deal with these communities, right? This is a very difficult set of decisions that need to be made. And I can call up the race data if you're interested. There's also some shape thing I would like to change, like the way that this little L comes down here. But I await your instruction as to how you want to, what you think is the right way to do it, as well as how you want this horseshoe to look, right? Because once you draw these 3 districts in the interior, then you've got this horseshoe here, which is not necessarily the way it should be done. And we could figure out different ways, if this came down farther here, that the arms of the horseshoe could be pushed up a little bit.
I would like to keep with what we can do that is more simple tonight,
Okay.
just so we can have people respond. And we had a work session on Wednesday. And again, I think by doing the simpler districts, we start to clarify what is important to us in terms of criteria.
Well, would you like to? Okay. Yeah.
And then once we clarify what's important to us in criteria, it's going to help us when we get to the more complicated districts. That's my view. I'd be happy to hear from someone else.
Now, Kate, you said we had a work session on Wednesday. Don't we have one Friday?
Friday, I'm sorry. Did I say Wednesday? Friday at noon.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. And I agree with Kate. I'm not ready to discuss Montgomery County and their 8 districts here, the Prince George's. I need to think a little more about that.
Yeah. And by simple, I mean the larger that we can get to the larger districts. And then we also have the opportunity for the public to weigh in with more information than if we stay focused on just one area tonight.
Can we switch up to the Eastern Shore?
I think so. As long as you've made a decision that it's not going to, that you're not going to cross the Chesapeake, then, then naturally you'd start south and move up. And frankly, this is where and these are genuine, like, I feel very confident saying there are real voting rights considerations with the assembly district here. And so you are limited in your options. Once you join Worcester, there's so many different ways to pronounce this depending on where you are in the country. I want to make sure I get it. I would say Worcester, but or do you say Worcester here?
It's actually said Worcester.
Worcester, good. Well, I'm actually also appointed to do the lines for Worcester, Massachusetts, but I didn't want to impose the Massachusetts dialect on Maryland here. So, all right. So once you have Worcester and Somerset together, and then you're going to split Wicomico, and the split is actually going to split the town of Salisbury. I've done this in a somewhat more compact way than currently. You can see the way it's done currently here, where it goes down and it's really going in and out of the city. I think that it could be done in the way that I've done it here. I'm eager to, the way I've done it, it separates out Fruitland from Salisbury. Fruitland's a town to the south. You can see Salisbury is very strangely shaped. And so the fact that it gets broken up is in part because it is got so many different parts. But this is dictated by the area of highest African American concentration, which will in an assembly district be joined with the sort of area in Dorchester and Cambridge area that also has a large African American population. And then there's a decision to be made about, where to split in Carroll County. Right now, this district would include Talbot, and then I just went sort of continuing with what looks like almost a county line here, but extending it. So just so you see, right, it just moves up the dividing line in Williston from here to there. Any comments?
So how many senatorial districts do we have on the Eastern Shore? 3?
3 full ones. So what's 47, 46, 45, and then depending on what you call this, right, one that goes from basically is half of Cecil, half of Hartford.
Professor, I had a question. I think that voting rights district you were talking about is currently a single member district.
That's right.
And so have you contained that single member district entirely in the representation of 46 now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be drawn a little bit differently than it currently is. Well, I mean, we could keep it exactly the same, but I think that because it's a commission that's doing this and not looking at political considerations, we can do it in a little bit more compact way than the way it's currently done. Where the way it's currently done, if you want to just see the House district, is this way. So this, I know I'm putting up a lot of lines on the screen here. So State Legislative District 37A, right, goes, I'll highlight it in red for you because it's so hard to see. It goes like this. And so that is not, this area in Salisbury will still be in that district. I don't think, maybe there are good reasons, and it'd be good to get public testimony for it to go all the way up as well. But in order to create a majority Black district, you don't need to go all the way up, and you could go in this direction. And so that's something to think about. But it does, you'll see that at least the areas that are currently in that district here would also be in the district. Right, so you see the black line here goes and gets that population. Okay. All right. We just show, so I think, unless someone has some better idea on where to split Caroline County, this seemed like a natural, road in order to go down.
I would love to hear from Kim and her input because she lives on the Eastern Shore.
I think that boundary does make sense. I would like to see the redrawing, though, of that oddly shaped district, because there are a lot of people in North Dorchester that feel that Salisbury does not represent what they stand for at all. It's very different, and we don't see a representative from Salisbury come to North Dorchester, so there's lack of representation there from who was elected in Salisbury this past term.
Yeah, and then these are the challenges. But if I had to point to one area in the entire state where I think the voting rights constraint is the most legally significant, it's this community. And that has to do with, because of the unlike Montgomery County, Baltimore, and some other areas, the levels of difference in the way that African Americans and whites are voting in this area. That's exactly the situation where the Voting Rights Act is most applicable. And so what we can do, though, like I was trying to show before, is to do a more compact assembly district, but we're going to have to draw, I think, at least one of those assembly districts here. And this, by the way, apropos our earlier conversation about multi-member versus single-member districts, the only way you're going to comply with the Voting Rights Act in this particular area is with a single-member district. so it requires that you break this up into three districts, 3 assembly districts. All right, well, so then this basically just goes up. Once you've done, I mean, this obeys, you can see here, is obeying the county line for Queen Anne's County, right? And let me just take the Senate districts off for a second. And so this gets all of Queen Anne's, keeps it together. Caroline's the only split county, and then just goes up. And you know, you can see what governed the line drawing here, which is that once you put in Elkton, you know, part of what I'm trying to do here is to make sure it's all contiguous, right? So you can actually travel between. Now, it's not as if these are, you know, this is not the Atlantic Ocean right here, but this creates, right, land bridges here. Another option, right, is you could have this go all the way up north and then have this little area here go in with the rest of what is District 44. But this is another decision that needs to be made.
But right now, doesn't it respect the county lines?
No, I mean, this is a split county in Cecil anyway. So the question is how to split Cecil. And the answer I came up with is, all right, you keep going up on the eastern shore, you get Elkton, and then you can decide either to go north or south. And I basically kept everything south of 95 here, and then kept, you know, just honored the cities.
I see.
Because you can't add, I think, any more cities to this, because then it'll be overpopulated. So this District 45, as it's drawn here, is you could add some more. I mean, like if we could just experiment here to see if you wanted to.
So you want to go up to Cecil, up to the Pennsylvania line?
Yeah, you could do this, for instance, if you wanted to swap like this area of territory for this area. But like, I don't know the logic in doing that. Like what's the actual argument, but maybe there's some argument for doing it. That's 14,000 people there. And so we can just see how many.
The split you currently have does mostly respect I-95 going right down the middle of it, like between north and south there. So yeah, I think it makes sense.
And so we could go up like something like this for but this is the kind of these kind of changes right at the margin here, unless we were trying to do something like we were trying to do with Ellicott City. This, once we start getting back to getting maybe a closer population deviation, I think we'll make lots of changes like that. But again, the big kind of basic principle here is you go up to Elkton, you include Elkton in the District 45, and then you decide where to pick up the necessary population, either down here or up there. And we can always make that change later.
Let me put in a word for the way you do it in the first place, because that triangle of land, which doesn't have all that many residents down there, is going to inevitably include more water-related livelihoods and businesses. And that's what the Eastern Shore Senator is already going to be pretty expert at dealing with.
I mean, yeah, just so you can see, like you said, it's not exactly a metropolis down here, right? So this area, right, we've got Elkton in there, and then it goes into these sort of rural areas. You've got a forest over here and the like. So that's why it would be. So I think I estimated that there's roughly 7,000 people all throughout here. If that, and then there's 14,000 if we go up to the Pennsylvania border. So you know, that can be massaged in one way or another. But this way you can see there is road access going through the whole district. Okay, why don't we see if we can get up through Hartford and then decide what else to do here. So so if this border in Cecil is right, then the question is, do you just keep going north over into Hartford, and how far do you go?
Here, I would like to jump in and say I wonder if maybe we can put off deciding Harvard for sure until people know what the options are, maybe Friday or whatever, because to me, this is not that intuitive a map. Cecil has to take quite a bit of population from Harvard, but you're avoiding taking Hobdegrass or Aberdeen, even though I would think they would be pretty closely connected with Perryville and Port Deposit. Meanwhile, Bel Air is which has enough people that you could use it as the basis for a Northern Hartford Senate district. It's really being kind of, pulled onto a peninsula. I just think taking the eastern part, including Aberdeen and Hobdegrass for the Cecil district, and then maybe if you did a Bel Air-based district down in Edgewood and Joppatown, would be the logical place to hook up with the similar areas in Baltimore County that are also based on those same major highways. It's just a suggestion, but this part didn't appeal to me.
But just so I explain the logic though here, which is that, so the idea was to keep the sort of shore district, the shore of this county together, and then to go just as far in as necessary in order to get a requisite population without splitting Bel Air. And so that's what ended up happening here, right? A lot of these are not as heavily populated. But this again, if you think that there's almost a community of interest between Hobdegrass and Perryville and these Aberdeen, well, then that makes a lot of sense to then create Cecil's district going down in there. What you do with the remainder of the shore here, that's sort of a question. You could have this district go into the Baltimore County area, right? And so then what you're basically doing is moving this district up, moving this district out, moving this district down. Okay. And so you're right. The decision we make here does have an effect on Baltimore County. And so that's all I would say. So in part, I know you and I have spoken about this. Do you want a district that crosses Baltimore County and goes essentially up to almost the border with Baltimore City?
I mean, this affects how we have to talk about Baltimore County. So I realize there's many different interests at play here, but I didn't, looking at the Harford County map, I thought that it was not optimal for representing Harford County. And so I just wanted to kind of slow things down a little bit to give a chance to do, and it may be that tonight is not the right time to decide it, but.
So this, I believe, I think this is the white population is in white. So part of also just looking at this was seeing whether there was a kind of community of interest along this line here. But Bel Air, what I will do is I'm just going to experiment with taking Bel Air out and what might compensate for it, either over here or elsewhere. Because maybe it's not, I mean, just to get a sense of what the size of the population is in that Bel Air area. So if you sort of, this is about 20,000 people.
What heat map are we looking at right now?
This is percent non-white in a sense. So the white areas is white, the red areas are the fewest whites, non-Hispanic whites. And so I just wanted to get a sense that you do have along the shore, right, a higher minority populations than you in the interior, but we could see about there's probably a trade that could be made here between Bel Air and Hobdegrass, because there's no reason, as I agree with what Walter was saying, which is like there's no conceptual or philosophical reason why one would put Bel Air in with the coast. It was just an easy way to do the population here, as well as you can see, there's another district that was coming in. But I think we do need to rethink. I mean, I'm very interested in the community's views on where the right area is to go in from Hartford into Baltimore County.
But would that pack that district?
District 43 is actually 63% white, even if so this is just a significant minority population. I mean, District 43, just so we're clear what we're talking about here, 63% white, 21% black, about 6% Hispanic, and about 3.5% Asian. So it's going to be a minority district no matter how you cut it. Do you want to go to Southern Maryland, or do you want to do Baltimore, or should we wait? You give me some marching
Southern
orders.
Maryland would make sense because you don't want to. I mean, you have to work your way up from there to
Right.
regardless. So
then the first question is, right, do you respect the Prince George's County border? Because once you do that, then then a lot of what happens here is inevitable in a sense, right? Because right now, for instance, if you started drawing a district that went from St. Mary's and then into Calvert County, then you would have leftover population here. So if you start essentially at the southern border of Prince George's County and then go around, as we've done here, then you get something like these districts.
I've looked at several ways of mapping Southern Maryland. I think this is a good one. This keeps the county splits down. It gives Northern Charles County, which has really come into its own and emerged, gives it a strong Senate district that it doesn't have to share with Prince George's. I mean, I don't really see anything wrong with the way Nate has drawn this, but.
Yeah, I'll agree. I mean, that the southern part of Anne Arundel County and the North Beach part of Calvert, there's a lot of community interest in bringing those into a district. That would be a split for Anne Arundel, but it makes sense.
And so again, I don't know what I was even toying with whether it should come up here, whether, there's a lot of different ways to do this. These are not incorporated municipalities. I was intrigued that there's a town of California in St. Mary's County, Maryland. I thought that was, a little dedication to me there. But anyway, but this is the amount of population that is necessary for the district. And then Calvert is kept together. Then Anne Arundel, again, assuming we don't go over into Prince George's County, and I want to kind of leave that on the table as a possibility. But like I said, this plan religiously obeys the county lines, and that's not necessarily the preference of the commission or normatively maybe what you want to do. But once you do that within this border with Prince George's County, then this goes up. Again, how we draw this line here, I think, is reasonable. People can disagree. I'll just say one thing that's kind of in the technical redistricting realm. You'll notice that, like, if you look at the way the state Senate districts are drawn, they're on the border. They're not including the water. When I do this, I'm including the water, and that sort of adds to the compactness of it. But you can't, it's very hard to know where the right answer is in terms of where you go in from the water into what is essentially the western shore here. So that, again, for those who are more invested in Anne Arundel County or more experience, right? We could do this in several different ways. This makes it so that we've got basically equal population. Then there's an Annapolis district going up. If you're more familiar with like how you could see the precinct lines here, I thought provided a nice border. Of course, they also go in with these sort of inlets here. And then it just simply goes up to where try to draw as smooth a line as possible. And like I said, we can smooth these out in any number of ways, but this, District 30, as I have it here, has got It's basically a perfect district, just 1% over.
Is Crofton being split?
Say that again?
Is Crofton being split?
Crofton is slightly split here, but Crofton is not a municipality. But that's like that's a good that's something that we could change, for instance. So if we wanted, it depends. One thing I've learned with these non-municipal census designated places like Crofton is that sometimes the borders that we see that the census gives us are different than the borders that people who are familiar with the area. But we could do something like this if you're interested, where we take.
The reason I asked is because I remember doing a lot of the testimony that people were confused how one side of the street was one district and the other side of the street another district. So I just, when I saw that it was, split a little bit of that, it just popped in my mind.
Yeah. So this is an example of what if we added, you see, one of the problems here is the crazy precinct. So there's a little part of Crofton here that when you add it, the precinct goes all the way down here. But this is about 11,000 people that could be added, but we could make up for it, going in whatever direction we want, right? So you could have one that goes in this direction.
Well,
or up or
if you use the imagery, that might give you another look at where the densest area is. So you can see some of that is pretty rural. I mean, it goes from public sewer and water to no public sewer and water pretty quickly in some of those areas. And that makes a big difference in the density.
It may be that this area here that Commissioner Thomas was talking about might be, I mean, we can do it just the populated area. So for instance, you do this and this, that is 8,000 people. And then if we wanted to break a precinct, right, we could add, I don't even know if there's really that many people, it's a few hundred people that may be in this area. But that has a nice appeal to it because there's a line that the election officials could deal with this because there's a nice line from the highway there. And so that, that has an effect on the population. We've got a deviation of 8.2 and 6.6, but that is a way of uniting Crofton in one district, if that was something that interested you.
Well, I was just raising the concern because raising the concern that other people have brought up.
I think William is right. I've heard that same concern from people living in that area.
Can you show me again Charles County, how you have that written, Charles County?
Yep. And so here is basically Charles County. The northern portion is in its own district. And then the southern portion is in a district that goes into St. Mary's.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I actually noticed, I mean, there's this area called Port Tobacco. I don't know whether, one of the challenges here, you'll see the water goes all the way up to here. So I usually, for reasons we've talked about before, want to make sure there's at least land bridges between these areas. And so Port Tobacco is taken away from La Plata for what it's worth.
Just as a trivia nerd, let me note that Port Tobacco Village is, I believe, the smallest incorporated municipality, having 13 people living in it.
Yeah, is that right? let me
On the other hand,
page about it.
It's a great historic place to visit. It is devoted to the history of Southern Maryland.
So you'll see here's part of the problem is that it has the misfortune of being in a gigantic precinct of 12,000 people. So that is, again, we can break the precincts with ease if we wanted to here, but this ruins land contiguity if we were to add it up there. So that's one of the reasons why I did it the way I did. Judge Williams, does this split of Charles County look intuitive to you?
Again, you're respecting the Prince George's County lines, and
that's right.
And I'm not quite certain where I'll fall on that. We heard the president of the Charles County. We heard the president of the Charles County Commissioners testified that he was interested in parts of Charles County hooked up with Southern Maryland. So I'll start to look at that, but I'm not quite sure where I stand on that. Prince George's County obviously has 7.5 districts, as we said before. So somewhere down the line, either you have to go into Montgomery County or Charles County or Anne Arundel County. So I'm just looking at all those as possibilities for that eighth senatorial district.
And just to be clear, this is the way that I've done it now, is that it goes into Howard and Anne Arundel, right? That's the only breach of the Prince George's County border. This may be the kind of thing that once you hear from, I can't remember Gloria's last name, who's going to be testifying next Monday. What's her last name?
Blackwell.
Is that her name?
Yes.
Who's going to talk about the Latino concentrations in Montgomery County and Prince George's, that may affect your decision whether to go in this direction, whether to, I think that because of the numbers, that Northern Charles County, this provides a kind of coherent district, that there might be other reasons like what we did with the congressional plan, where maybe it makes sense to go and bridge Charles County and Prince George's. But I think here, demographically, this is a pretty coherent district. But there are lots of ways to skin the cat here, right? So maybe it makes sense to go down in this direction and to essentially rotate it 90 degrees. So do you want to, where else would you like to go? So we're in Anne Arundel right now, and that's where things you can see start getting, there's pressures from Baltimore and Prince George's County. And so it's hard to talk about Anne Arundel without talking about those. However, and this, by the way, this is not the changes that we're making to Baltimore before that I was showing you. This is the original plan from yesterday. So if, for example, we were going to respect this boundary, it's going to shift a lot of the different areas in here.
What's the least complicated of what's left to discuss for tonight? I'm just mindful of the time.
I think it's all complicated right now. This is
right.
Now we're getting into the.
We hit that point. All right.
We can do, frankly, like with Prince George's County, if you're going to respect these lines, right, then it's not as complicated. There are some real interesting, difficult Voting Rights Act issues that we will start dealing with very quickly. But you'll end up, if these lines are respected, you're going to end up with something like this just because of where the population is. You can decide to do it more east-west or north-south, right? Like, I don't know, is it the right decision to, Accokeek is in with all the areas here in South and Eastern Prince George's County,
I would like to do Prince George's if that's all right with everybody.
What's that?
Look at Prince George's next, if that's all right with everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to make some other changes on that, Kate. I'm not sure I'm agreeing to the way it is.
Okay. Do you want to do that tonight, Judge, or would you prefer to look at that on Friday?
Yeah, maybe on Friday. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But I think at the risk of giving you all homework just to think about between now and Friday, I'm putting on my professor mode here. Thinking about the pressures are, do you agree with the way that these three districts inside Montgomery County are drawn, right? These three, the ones that's Gaithersburg, one that's Rockville, and one that's Germantown, right? That's one decision that needs to be, because that will affect the shape of this district as well as district. And then you only need to deal with the border areas here. And then to think about how you're going to deal with Baltimore, because Baltimore is there are so many different options there. So that if the commission is of one mind on the way that the remedy or the alternative to Baltimore that I had before, that would be useful to know, and then a lot will flow from that. admittedly, we're going to have to make some decisions like we were saying here with Hartford. But, we can cross that bridge when we get there.
I'm going to have to look at Baltimore City a little bit more before I can really agree to anything.
Maybe what I'll do is I'll send to you the images of the alternative also. And so you can tell me what you think makes the most sense there.
You do the same for Baltimore County for me, please.
Oh, I'm sending it to everyone. I'll send anything I sent to one, I sent to everybody. So
Okay.
I'll send it to Kristen, everyone will get it. And so I'll show you on, I'm sorry, what?
I have a question. Remember earlier you were talking about creating like a donut, and you said that could be problematic, where you have in Montgomery 8, 9, and 11, and it seems like a donut is going around that. Is that a problem?
No, because they're not. It would be a problem if you see District 6 totally enveloped District 8.
Oh, okay. All right.
But the way this is
it's a croissant. It's not a donut. Okay, got
it. Exactly.
This is map humor. You see what's happening now, right? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so and again, thinking about how we the large Latino concentrations in District 13, as I have it here, thinking about like how to deal with Tacoma Park and this area here, I think is important. These are both District 13, as I've drawn it, and District 33 are substantial and I believe plurality Latino districts, but they are not majority. You'll see District 33 here is 37% Latino. District 13 is also 37%. And District 34 is 31%. So you basically got 3 districts with about a third of the adjusted voting age population is Latino. And so part of the question is, do you want to try to draw a majority Latino district, or do you want to respect the the populations on, respect the dividing line between Montgomery County and Prince George's County?
I'd like to hear from Gloria Blackwell on that. So she's going to speak with us on Monday.
We'll hear from her next Monday, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. And so so maybe then, if you're worried about that and want to get that feedback, the most important thing we could do Friday is to really think about Baltimore and how to get this done up here. That's a major set of decisions for the map as a whole. So if we can knock that out, I think that's a pretty big deal. The other thing is, I don't know where we are on the congressional map. If you want to, it's out there for public comment. We haven't gotten much in the way of public comments on it, except the laudatory comments from today. And so we can decide if you want to, one thing I can do with the congressional map is I can make it perfect population equality, right? So that we know what a perfect population map would look like. Because right now it's got about, less than 1% deviation.
That sounds like a good thing, Professor.
Okay. One other
question about the congressional. There are some commissioners that still are not certain about the Eastern Shore split with the Chesapeake Bay. So I think eventually we're going to have a more final discussion on that.
And maybe any changes I make to this should wait for that discussion, because there's no sense in doing a perfect population map if you're going to deal with those major changes. One thing I will ask is, I know there's been some concern, I can't remember where I've read it, about this particular shape of the Baltimore City congressional district. And so one thing that's not difficult to do is to make this go down like this a little more. It's still I have it going into Baltimore County, but we could, this could be smoothed out a little. In fact, I did an example, if you're interested, just for my own edification, I think, so you can see what it might look like. So you could do something like this. You see that? So then that gets Glen Burnie and those areas in.
And let me say, I think this one is better in some ways than the other one because it takes in areas closer to the airport and closer to Baltimore employment, whereas some of the areas that it took in previously to the right begin to shade into not depending as much on the city economy, but not being part of the economic engine. I mean, this also, I think, does better at keeping more of Glen Burnie together.
How about, is Arbutus being split though?
Well, that's not new though, is it? That was in both maps.
Yeah, that's in both maps.
Well,
And I can play around with this. Again, these are not municipalities. These are city census designated places, but we can.
well, I think the splits that we're also talking about with the districts and Baltimore County and Baltimore City have an impact on this as well. So even though they are the district maps, I think if you're going to be combining more of Baltimore City with the county, the district, why wouldn't you do that as well for the congressional?
I'm not positive I follow. Right now we've got Baltimore County, because of the Eastern Shore District is going to have to go into Baltimore County somewhere and pick up population, assuming it just so it goes up here. Then the remainder, assuming we're respecting Baltimore City, the remaining district for Baltimore County is not enough to get all of Baltimore County. So there's got to be some left over. So you could have the leftover, come up here, come up here, come up there, or do it here where then it is joining up with the part in Anne Arundel. But that's actually not a bad idea, consistent with what you're saying before, is that you could, decide that there's a better part of Baltimore County that would be put in with the city, and it doesn't increase the number of splits, right? Because we're splitting it either way. And so then I rely on the Baltimore experts here as to whether it makes sense to put this area in with Baltimore City, or whether it makes sense to put, one of these other areas around.
Yes,
So when we add
that's what I was considering we discuss.
Yeah, and so let me add that to your homework. But this, I know those of you who live in Anne Arundel, thinking about what the right answer is here. Obviously, this can go in any number of directions, right? You could have this go in from Baltimore City into Baltimore County and then into Howard if necessary. But this seems like a kind of minor-ish breach to go in just to get the necessary population. Of course, if you're not worried about additional county splits, right, you could have this district, all of this blue area go into the pink area, but then the pink area has to go down into some other part of the green area, right, or into Carroll County.
Well, we were,
Okay.
I think someone did mention, I think some parts of, I think it was Route 40, and we thought about some of the population, South Asians and others that may go from Ellicott City through Catonsville and things of that nature. So there are some commonalities when you go across west into Howard County. That's just a thought. That was just something I wanted to know.
Right. Well, that's a reasonable. Yeah, that's another alternative, right? So if you think about it this way, if you rotated and you had the green area come up and take this blue area, and then the blue area came across, to go into that area. But we're we're running into the same problem we were just discussing with the Senate map, which is that you're going to probably have to split one or more of these communities.
I would suggest keeping it as is, the green area, with the link.
Isn't that how it's currently split?
I'm sorry.
What's the current map? Can we pull that up too?
Yeah.
It is currently split, I believe it goes there.
I remember the current congressional districts are sort of insane. So everything is right. everything is chopped up. You can see that there's a district that goes all the way from Montgomery County through Howard up into central Baltimore.
And
right.
even into Baltimore County, north.
Yeah. I mean, then basically the congressional map did not pay attention or a lot of concern to the political subdivision lines. So and the congressional map that we have, that we were just looking at, right, is, you know, assiduously obeying the political subdivision lines. You can see here, like very different than the yellow lines that underline it. Okay.
All right. Anything else you want the professor to address today?
And please email me. Please email me, particularly. I keep getting unrecorded and recorded here. The email me other scenarios you want to run. So like especially for the Baltimore, if there's particular issues, send me, say, can you do this? Do the intrusion in this particular area. I'm happy to do that. And then let's I'll have those ready for you on Friday and we can discuss through that. Just so I'm completely clear on my marching orders, though, do you want me to make this a perfect population equality map or not?
I may be in the minority here. I still want to explore jumping the bay, so to speak, with Southern Maryland and the Eastern Shore. But I don't know what that does with the rest of the map, though. So,
well, it rotates things upward, right? So,
right. It also depends on where you stop it going north on the Eastern Shore. So,
yep.
And
so,
I mean, isn't in the end we're supposed to have more than one, arrangement, right? That we come. No, I'm not saying in the very end. I mean, in terms of us considering what possible options are. Like right now, we're looking at this particular map, but our people come up with other things as well. Is that out of the question to look at what it would look like in terms of what he?
No, I'm eager to do that. Just tell me how you would like to do it, and then I can. And that's why I sent you all of those different scenarios where I did the individual districts, so you could see what the other options might be. But I'm happy to produce a congressional map that goes and puts Calvert and St. Mary's, if you want, in with the Eastern Shore, and then you can see what it does going up. One thing it will do is it will pack, assuming you continue to obey Prince George's County, right, that if you take away Calvert and St. Mary's, right, then District 5 will go up. And so this will be a closer to 60% Black population district, whereas right now it is 55. And so and then number 4, District 4, which is 43% Black, will decrease. But I mean, but then there are a lot of ways to deal with that if you're going to cross over into Anne Arundel County and things like that.
So your question was, you wanted to, I don't know the terminology, but kind of crystallize the sizes. What was that terminology you used, Professor?
To create like a zero deviation map, that?
Yeah, and I thought I heard from Mary, she had concerns about that, doing it now. I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with it, but I just want to. So basically what you're going to try and do with the congressional is get to the perfect number. Is that right?
Yeah, but so the thing about it is, it makes if there are kind of tectonic changes that you think you're going to want to make to this map, there's no reason to get down into the streets and start doing it. Yeah. But I'm trying to think about what we can, I'm just trying to plan what Friday is going to look like. And so if on Friday, on Friday, we could have another discussion on the congressional map. You could even vote on, what you want to have as right now, this is just a kind of discussion piece, right? Which is out there. And so we could make progress there. Or if you think that we can knock out the Senate map, then let's do that. But I think there are a lot of debates that you all need to have among yourselves is like the right way to split up Baltimore, right? And I'm worried that that if we're all going to be waiting for how the testimony from Gloria about the Latino population, I'm worried we're not going to make enough progress on the Senate map on Friday. And so I was just trying to think of other things that we might want to accomplish. And so getting a perfect population congressional map was one of them.
So what I heard you say earlier for Friday is we wanted to look at Baltimore City and Baltimore County. And now, in addition to that, we're looking at looking at the congressional map and Senate maps. And trying to come to greater closure.
I'm happy. I mean, one other option is we just go ahead with the Senate map, try to nail that down, and then we'll adjust it based on the testimony that you hear the following Monday.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
And then Gloria's input will help guide us as to where we have to make adjustments.
Okay.
As far as the Senate map, if we're going to be prepared to talk about Baltimore City and County on Friday, which I agree is a great idea, and also Prince George's County on Friday, really that only leaves Montgomery, right? Are we?
Right.
Yeah, I think we have to talk about Prince George. You know, after you're done talking about Prince George, you've got to talk about Montgomery, and just because that's part of the question is whether you're gonna traverse that boundary or not.
All right. So our priority is looking at Baltimore City and Baltimore County on Friday, followed by Prince George's and Montgomery.
Yep.
And how much time did we say for Friday? Because it starts at 12, and I know that's tough for people because it's in the middle of the workday.
Well, we certainly shouldn't go over 2 hours.
And keep in mind, as many people as possible. I think we need 5. William's saying, no way. So for some of us, that will be, I know I have to leave a meeting to make sure that I'm there at 12.
I'm very committed. It's been tough. I'm going to do my best to be present fully, but given the school year and the babies in the building, it can be challenging at times to be fully present.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is we don't all have to be at every single meeting. We videotape everything so you can take a look at it. It's you know, it's just going to be the way. I mean, I know I won't be able to make a later meeting because I'll be working at night. So I think whatever works, and we'll do the best we can because we have to have at least 5, I believe, right? When we're voting on maps, we need 7, I believe, but 5 for them to have a meeting. And we're not finalizing anything right now. We're discussing.
Let me also offer to Commissioner Brooks, if you want at some other time over the next week, just to sit down with me and we can, you know, look at Baltimore together and work out a scenario. I'm eager to do that. So if I can.
Plus you're taking emails from us all the time. You know, we've been sending you stuff. So that's another option, you know, just questions you have, or if you want to see a map drawn differently. Professor Priscilla has been really helpful with that. That's another option.
Well, I do know that I can commit myself for an hour on Friday, but no longer.
Let's go then for an hour on Friday and get the best that we can with the priority of Baltimore City and Baltimore. I'm only saying this because I'm chairing Friday. I just want to see what we're going to be covering. So if we can do Baltimore City and Baltimore County, and if we have time beyond that to move on to Prince George's in 1 hour, that would be a good thing. But whatever you have, and Montgomery following that, but whatever you have in advance of that, check with Professor Priscilla. It's been really, really helpful.
Okay.
How are people thinking? William, what are you thinking?
Yeah, everyone should have an opportunity to speak. And
William, what do you think? I'm looking at that smile. I don't know.
And everyone's opinions are very important here. All
That's right.
And
I
so
always have something to say. Whether I should say it or not is a different story.
Go ahead.
No, I gotta filter through my thoughts first before
Okay.
I speak.
All right.
okay. All right. Anything else for this evening? Got 10 minutes to 8. I think we won't be able to narrow down any criteria today. A little early. We're still thinking about that, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
I think, Judge, we are getting to some of the criteria, even though we're not verbalizing it. Sounds that way. Do you need a motion?
Yeah, anything else? All right, just a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
The second. All right, all in favor, aye. Anybody
Aye.
opposition? All right, opposition. All right. We'll see y'all on Friday at 12 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Those who can make it. Yeah, okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, Commission.
Thank you.
Yeah.